when you have people coming into your training, are they naturally happy? Is there a common denominator or a common theme as to what creates a negative environment within a company?
Mm-hmm. I think the business environment or the work environment is so essential for people to grow and to flourish. It's like, I imagine the environment is like the soil that you're planting seeds in, and your people are the seeds. So if you are putting great seeds in a toxic environment, that seed will die. It will never grow. But if you put seeds in a great environment, it will grow. And I think that is very important for people to stay. I was reading a book, and it said 70% of people who resign, they're not leaving the company. They're usually leaving the line manager. And the line manager makes or breaks the environment that you're in.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the Mo Show podcast. We have Mr. Hisham Al-Dabbagh. كيفك Hisham?
Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I'll give the viewers a little bit of a background on what it is you do. So you're the managing partner at Al-Adl International. They were formerly Crestcom. And Crestcom is a training center that provides interactive leadership development programs to achieve sustained behavior change in managers. Al-Adl, which was, formerly affiliated with Crestcom, they work with small, medium, and even Fortune 500 companies. I want to know more about that. Over the last 30 years, they worked with over 1 million executives in 60 countries, helping them develop new leadership skills. I love it. I want to hear all about it. Hey, I might even sign up on a personal basis. What can one expect from a training program at Al-Adl International?
Thank you for asking. So at Al-Adl International, we're focused on developing mid-level managers to be the future leaders. And our program is not about sharing knowledge per se. It's about how we improve performance. So we look at what you learn and how you apply the learning in the workplace. Our engagement is typically a 1-year engagement, 10 months to be exact. And what we do is we look at what happens after the training, which is more important than the training itself. How you take back the learning and apply it within your workplace or within your life.
How do you ensure that employees in companies manage to execute on what they've learned at your training facility?
So historically, training and development has been more of a reward. If I want to reward Mo, I'll send him on a course, travel, and learn a few things. But the question is, how much do you learn, you apply in the workplace? And we managed to make that more structured by actually asking each participant to write up an action plan, specific action plan as to what they learned and how they're going to apply what they learned in the workplace. Part of the 10-month engagement, we go through coaching sessions throughout the journey to ensure what you learn gets applied within the workplace. To the degree, Mo, that we made it mandatory for a person to successfully graduate and get the certificate, they need to prove that they've applied 10 implementations, and these implementations have to be validated by their line managers and the organization. So that makes it, this is where the rubber hits the road, as they say.
Just again, I mean, it's really refreshing because normally training programs end the moment, that you complete the training course. But what's honestly refreshing, and I want to underscore that, is that the training program in your facility isn't over when the training is over. It is over when you have executed your learnings. It's genius. Mm-hmm. It's very, very nice to hear because it's different.
Thank you.
Execution, name of the game. You always hear that. Right. So 10,000 graduates have come through your doors in your facility in Saudi Arabia.
Correct. And we operate between Jeddah, Riyadh, and the Eastern Province. We have, a variety of participants from diverse group of the society, We have men, women, executives, and mid-level managers mostly who attend our program. We help transform. Our mission is to help transform managers to become leaders, and that's what we do throughout the journey. It's really a journey of 1 year that they take over the course of the course.
How many years have you guys been operating in Saudi Arabia?
This is our 12th year.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. So far, so good.
That's great numbers. 10,000 graduates in 12 years. That's just shy of like 1,000 graduates a year, if my math isn't wrong. Seem to be popular. Has it gained in popularity? Obviously, with the years, more companies recognizing you and probably hearing a word of mouth from other companies that, hey, this is Al-Adl International that do a very good job.
Absolutely. Our marketing strategy is word of mouth. So we post things on social media, but we grow by the word of mouth and referrals that we get from our existing clients. And we used to, 12 years ago, we were operating in one city with few family businesses, but slowly we grew to 2 cities. Now we actually do it not only the 3 major cities, but we do it in Yanbu and Medina and other cities as well.
We spoke a few days on the phone, and you told me that one of the areas that you guys are also affiliated in is an expense reduction and cost optimization solutions. What role do you guys play on that subject at Al-Adl?
So this is one of the newest business lines that we acquired. It's also a franchise out of the UK. And they're specialized in business optimization. We look at processes and we see how we can improve these processes, or we look at procurement solutions. With the COVID hitting a lot of companies, a lot of organizations were hurting. And we're trying to help optimizations become more lean, not necessarily in staff reduction, but more in process improvement. And alhamdulillah, this business is growing very fast the past couple of years.
How did COVID affect you guys? Were people coming in less for training? Did you guys feel the hit of COVID?
For some organizations, they had to shut down all training.
Completely.
But many of other organizations that we work with, we shifted to virtual learning.
All right.
We were actually one of the first organizations within Crestcom International to go virtual. I remember the first session we did virtual, it was in March. And year to date, or since last year, we did over 200 virtual sessions.
Wow, that's
alhamdulillah.
It just within Saudi's borders?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So, from what we've been through recently, or the world has been through, there has been, let's say, disagreements on whether companies should either hold on to their marketing budgets or work it into the market at a hope of it coming back multiples. Where do you stand on what the best route to profits would be at a time of uncertainty? Hold your budgets until things become clear, or work and try to gain an edge, if not some market share.
What I stand in is looking at your innovation. COVID has accelerated a lot of companies to become more innovative, to fit the new needs of people. And I think having an internal look for organizations and where do they spend money, looking at how we can innovate our products to fit today's needs and tomorrow's needs as well, is something that I always like to focus on. And this is what we've done as a company, looking internally and seeing what can we do to improve and meet our clients' needs during these hard times.
You said that you were at Unilever and you had a public speaking role there?
Not a public speaking role per se, but I was handed training, courses that I needed to deliver throughout my career as a supply chain manager.
Because you have great public speaking skills.
Really? Okay.
Honestly, and you have a great voice for a podcast.
Are you trying to convince me?
I think maybe you should one day look into starting your own. You have a fantastic voice, honestly. It's better than mine. Hisham, who do you look up to for inspiration or mentorships? Is there someone out there who you refer to time and time again to seek advice or help?
Absolutely. I always look up to my dad. My father has been through a lot as a businessman, and every weekend I sit down and I get some mentorship from him on things that we go through in our organization.
Did they have it easier in their time growing up, or do we have it easier? Bear in mind, there was no internet back when he was, in his early working years.
There's a lot of conveniences that we have, but some conveniences complicates things, and back then it used to be, he was a former Aramco, so it was 7 to 4. After 4 o'clock, no emails, no phone calls, nothing. For us, it's a 24/7.
It is.
So that's the reality.
Which is constantly, reachable, which is a problem.
That's right.
Especially if you have one phone. I have one phone, which I'm looking into getting a second phone so that when the workday is done, that phone goes off. You got to find ways to stay sane.
That's right.
In the current times. How important is it for a company to create a positive or a happy environment? Like when you have people coming into your training, are they naturally happy? Is there a common denominator or a common theme as to what creates a negative environment within a company?
Mm-hmm. I think the business environment or the work environment is so essential for people to grow and to flourish. It's like, I imagine the environment is like the soil that you're planting seeds in, and your people are the seeds. So if you are putting great seeds in a toxic environment, that seed will die. It will never grow. But if you put seeds in a great environment, it will grow. And I think that is very important for people to stay. I was reading a book, and it said 70% of people who resign, they're not leaving the company. They're usually leaving the line manager. And the line manager makes or breaks the environment that you're in. So absolutely. If I may say a story about that.
Please.
One of the things that we gave, there's a family business we worked with here in Jeddah, and the CEO said, I want to create a business environment where people are, trust one another. And I said, let's do something called Coffee with the CEO, where you sit down with everyone in your organization once a day for 15 minutes over a cup of coffee. And he had about 100 people in the company. So by the end of the year, he would have met everyone once or twice or 3 times. One day, he was sitting down with a secretary. He's been working there for 10 years. As he was having coffee with him, he discovered that the guy had a CPA. And he asked him, you have a CPA, you're a accredited accountant. Why are you working as a secretary? He said, well, when I came to Saudi, that was a job that's available. And I tried to apply for accounting, never worked. So he asked HR to examine him, to look at his credential, and he was very good with numbers. So later on, a few months down the road, they moved him to accounting. And then instead of being an average secretary, he is actually above average as an accountant. So he was actually moved to an area that he's passionate about. And this is what great managers do. Realizing what people are passionate about and putting them there. An example is myself. I mean, I'm an engineer. I worked in manufacturing. A manager discovered that, hey, I'm good in talking, so let's put him in training. And that's how I moved and developed this company. I'm sure you had similar experiences as well.
I did. I was moved to sales once, and I was a disaster. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that I was capable doing as capable as I am as a marketeer, as far as I'm concerned.
Who helped you move to marketing?
My manager at the time saw that I had an eye for it. Mm-hmm. We had some conversations, and just that shift, I feel, helped me work with passion on subject matters. And there's horses for courses.
Right.
What you are very good at, someone else will be not so good at, and vice versa. It's funny, I actually said this in the last episode with Madiha, psychotherapist. Yeah. I said that I believe that God created everyone with something that they are amazing in. And if you haven't found something you're amazing in, you haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't have it.
That's right.
Keep searching.
Yes.
Everyone has amazing. I believe God is fair. I believe in that. And what you're not good at, you can be okay with that, because eventually I think that if you keep trying to find out what you're good in, you'll land on it eventually.
Absolutely. And there are many assessments that help people discover what are they good at. Strength Finder, for example, psychometric assessments that people take, and basically they find what are they good at. And
is it online, like a website, or
there are several websites,
okay,
that people can take. Yeah.
That's that's interesting. You know, that'll tell you a lot about yourself. I think one of the problems that people suffer from is not knowing their capabilities, not knowing themselves well enough.
Right.
Because when you know yourself well enough, you are experienced, and when you're experienced, you know what you're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was 21, I didn't know myself. When I was 25, I didn't know myself at all. At 37, 38, oops, I just turned 38 10 days ago. I feel like I know myself. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at.
That's right.
And God, if there are programs out there that will help you find out more about yourself, then please send it my way, and I'll be the first to apply and share it with those who are listening to us.
It'll be my pleasure.
I appreciate it. Okay. I also, on the subject of leadership and managers, how does a leader keep his team motivated, especially during times of conflict or difficulties or challenges? I mean, what was more challenging than COVID? Hopefully we'll never have to find out. How do you keep your team united and together and ready to go to battle for you?
I think making sure that we recognize people for what they do, reward them and thank them for a job well done, and also being there to coach and mentor them. You know, I always remember the quote, if you give a person a fish, you feed him for a day, but teach them how to fish, you feed them for their entire life. So taking, that metaphor of teaching people how to fish is what a manager should do. Because if they're successful, you'll be successful as a manager, and vice versa. So that's what I think is important. And this is what really distinguishes managers from leaders. Managers look at the work, and leaders look at the work in the context of people.
Mm-hmm. What's lacking in leaders in Saudi today?
I think communication. Communication is a big gap that we see. And a lot of managers think communication is about speaking. Communication is also about listening and understanding. So I think that's something that we look into our program. As we did surveys with clients within the kingdom, communication always comes as a top hot area as a gap.
Is that a global issue, weak communication, or is it an issue that we suffer from in the Middle East?
Good question. I don't know the answer for that. But while I was in the States, I worked 5 years in the States, and I also saw similar issues. Communication is a common issue that we see not only in business but in personal life between a husband and wife. Sometimes what goes in between is that misunderstanding, miscommunication, and I think this is something that we are trying to help organizations resolve.
Mm-hmm. Communication is everything. I asked my aunt, who was on the show, episode 22, Sultana, great episode. She founded the Institute for Hearing and Speech some 30 years ago.
Mashallah.
And back then there wasn't such a facility, and now anyone who has a child or even grown-ups who have issues with speaking or are hearing impaired, they go to Jish, and it's world-class service.
I heard about them.
Yeah, they really are amazing in what they do. She found her amazing. And I asked her, when I was about to get married, I was like, what makes a successful marriage in your point of view? And I asked her, as someone who's been married for 40 years, mashallah.
Mashallah.
And she said one word, which is what you just touched on now, communication. It's everything. The marriage will survive or die based on how good of a communicator you are, whether you communicate to your significant other or not. Some days I wish I practice her advice more, and some days I do. And I'll tell you one thing: my life is a lot better. My wife's life is a lot better when we are communicating with one another. It's everything.
That's
and you can apply it to anything, your marriage, your relationship with your boss,
Absolutely.
with your son. It doesn't stop anywhere, does it?
Absolutely. You think about it in business, if we don't communicate well with employees, we could lose an employee. If we don't communicate with the customers, we could lose a customer. And if we don't communicate with suppliers, we could have a huge issue with a supplier. So in business, communication is the number one competency that leaders need. Yeah,
totally. I'm sure you get some youngsters coming through the ranks, and you are a father too, mashallah. So your eye is on the youth and what the future holds for them. Is there anything that you see or would suggest or would like to advise the youth to focus on in their quest to entering the workforce?
Getting work experience sooner rather than later, I think is important, because education is important, but work experience is also important. So I remember when I was young, going through college, I would take summers where I work in businesses and gain experiences. This is how you build your CVs. And not only that, but you find what you're good at. You won't be able to discover what you're good at until you try things out. And I think getting youngsters to try different things at a younger age so that they can discover what are they good at, what are they passionate about, I think is important.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Also, being able to work in teams and work with people and widening your comfort zone.
That's right.
And not saying no to, not using the word no. Any job, any task, especially for a youngster. Just say yes to everything, and then eventually you'll know what you like versus what you don't like.
That's right.
I really do like that advice. Do you see the business landscape changing at all in not necessarily in Saudi, but globally? Any disruption, any changes, any anticipation of something different looming over the next 5 to 10 years as far as industries are concerned?
Well, the digital revolution is happening, and we can see
it's crazy.
Jobs that were there yesterday, now they're redundant. Technology is changing the face of the earth, and it's going to change businesses. So, and I think that's why when I say innovation is important for companies to think about what's the next step for them, because what could be effective today, tomorrow will be obsolete. And I think COVID, I've seen COVID accelerate that innovation.
Truly.
To the degree that some companies have adjusted. They don't need the office space as they do before. They discovered people can work from home just as effective.
It's totally. I think there were 5 delivery apps in Saudi Arabia before COVID, and now it's like 15. It's just the whole digital transformation has just been in the blink of an eye.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. As far as the education landscape, I believe kids under the age of 12 are still from home. They're getting homeschooled. Do you see the education landscape changing? Because I feel that now everyone in the world has access to information and education. You can learn anything. You can learn anything you want on YouTube.
That's right.
I learned the ins and outs of podcasting from YouTube. So 10 years ago, that wasn't available. And 5 years ago, smartphones weren't so available in third world countries. Do you expect now, with the internet and the information that is available on it, and smartphones in the hands of way more people than ever before, that there is more of an equal playing field for people who do have access to education? And can that change what the future holds?
As you said, information is now available. I think the role of education is how can we use that information to benefit the societies and communities that we work with in. I think that's the role of education that should come in. And I'm actually going through a program where I'm studying about education as a doctorate degree, and I'm learning a lot through that program as to what is coming in the future.
A lot is certainly changing. You did a few years in the States. You said 5 years, yeah? Boston and Houston.
I was born in Boston, but I lived in Los Angeles and Chicago for work. It's funny, people go there to study. I finished my studies and went back to work because my parents migrated to the States, and so I moved back. I moved to the States and I worked in Unilever in North America between Los Angeles and Chicago. It was a beautiful learning experience for me.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I learned so much in that small little time. Yeah.
So then what made you want to move back to Saudi?
Well, I got a call from Unilever Saudi Arabia, and they knew I was there and I've worked 5 years. They offered me a promotion. So I moved from Chicago to the industrial city, Sanaa. Big move.
My goodness. I'm sure it made you forget about Chicago from day one.
My office was on Lake Michigan, and my home was a walking distance on Lakeshore Drive, overlooking Lake Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And then I went to Sanaa, and it was overlooking something else.
Yeah, at least the weather was the same. That is quite that is quite a difference.
But honestly, if you ask me, if I go back, do I change anything? I would do it the same exact way.
Really?
Because I wouldn't be here today talking to you if I didn't go through that experience. Learning how management and leadership is done, and how we can improve the gaps that we have here is so important for me. When I saw the need, I decided, instead of complaining about how things are, let me do something about it. If I left Unilever, I finished my master's, and I brought a learning and development company that helped managers become leaders. Historically, as I've seen here, managers become leaders based on wasta or based on seniority. Wallah, you've been the eldest, the most senior in the company. So maybe they're technically competent, but do they have the management and leadership skills? Being a great engineer does not equal being a great manager. So that's something that I found interesting, and that's how I moved from engineering to management and leadership.
You probably never thought in your wildest dreams that studying engineering will eventually one day take you to Unilever.
No.
It's funny how the world works.
Yeah.
And you actually, one of the things that I did want to ask you was, would you change anything about your past business-wise, the route that you took to get to where you are? And it's good to hear that you wouldn't.
I wouldn't, honestly. I think every point in my life was important. Maybe at the time I didn't realize how important it is, but looking back, I think that was needed at the time, so I can learn from it.
I'm trying to watch a lot less TV these days, a lot less Apple TV and Netflix, and it's a message that I want to also send out to people, to almost cap or limit how many days a week you do watch. I can easily go 7 days a week, every day at dinner, I'm watching something. I'm starting to incorporate reading days once a week, where I literally do a couple of hours of reading, which is nothing. Once a week is a joke. Like, I'm even embarrassed to say that. It's a bit too much information on me. My question is, what books out there that have changed the way you see things, or ones that you would recommend to us?
Yeah. So I like nonfiction books. That's what I go to. And the three books that I feel in business are very important. Good to Great by Jim Collins, I think is one of the greatest books there in management. If for a person who's going into management, I think the 1 Minute Manager is an important book. And then if a person is at a fork in his life and want to make a change, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah, I read that one.
It's a great book.
Short book. It's actually on the shelf there.
Yeah, so it's one of the great books. So depending on what you're looking for, I think these are some of the 3 books that I always go to. You know,
I wanted to ask you a question earlier, and I just remembered. We're seeing the size of companies, regress with time, merging of jobs or automation or whatever. Is that a cause to be concerned, as far as unemployment is concerned? We're seeing corporations get smaller and smaller and smaller. Like, for example, companies that would make, $1 billion in revenue would have, hundreds of thousands of employees. I'm thinking of the automakers, etc. And, now you have social media companies that make close to that with a fraction of the number of employees, especially now in the digital age. Is that an area to be concerned for future? Is the corporation getting smaller?
The way I'm seeing it, back 20 years ago when I started my career, the image that you have is you work for either a government agency or a big conglomerate, and you would work there the entire life until you retire. This is no longer the case. And smaller businesses are coming up right now. And I think this is a great time for people to think as an entrepreneur and begin their businesses. Work experience is important, but I think about 5 years in corporate life for a person to get the work experience that they need and then start their own venture. This is how economies are built. I mean, if you look at the U.S. economy, it's built on small and medium-sized businesses.
Correct. Family-owned
businesses. So I think this is what the country needs at this time.
Well, they have a problem there, speaking of family-owned businesses, because Amazon is eating them up.
That's right.
It's a big problem.
Yeah.
Now, and honestly, I'm not helping that problem, because when I want something, I go to Amazon. I mean, it's convenience, and convenience sells. Convenience is profitable. If you offer a solution that is convenient, you will do very well, and that's what Amazon offers at the expense of the mom and pop shop on the high street.
How can they be, instead of brick and mortar, they can be suppliers to Amazon?
Correct.
You know what I mean? Yep. You see the wave, you ride the wave, and if you fight the wave, you're not going to go anywhere. So sometimes you need to ride that wave.
Well, I'll tell you something that I've heard Amazon does recently that I was like a little shocked to hear. So if a product is doing well, like very well, they would make their own and almost make that product that people were buying before they made their own invisible. That's not nice.
That's not nice.
That's dirty.
Yeah.
But this is public knowledge. I heard of it on another podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I wish that wouldn't happen. It's not fair for the person with the idea and the innovation.
That's right.
It's a bit barbaric, I feel.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, this is the world we live in. Everyone flocks to e-commerce. Yeah. And if you can go to a place that's a one-stop shop, it is Amazon. There isn't one that can rival it. And that's what it is. In Saudi, over the next 5 to 10 years, what changes do you anticipate? You see our government investing in every one of the 13 regions as far as tourism is concerned. Besides tourism, obviously that's going to be something that we are entering, and quite, aggressively. Are there any other industries that you see would come to prominence in the next 5 years or so?
So as a country's growing, and we're bringing tourists, obviously we want to have the services that support these tourists. I think the restaurant business is going to grow as this grows, and we're seeing it, mashallah, booming. Other sort of businesses in that area that can help, which is entertainment, is another area that people could look at, because we're starting from zero, right? And just looking around to our neighbors and other countries, entertainment is really booming in these areas.
Well, Hisham, thanks so much for coming here, sharing your stories about the world of leaders and management. It's tough, because if it wasn't tough, everyone would be a great manager and every company would excel. And that's a testament to why it's important to have people like you in the position that you are in, your company, your team, because I don't think there's any company that has it all figured out. I don't think there's a manager that has it all figured out. And there's definitely no employee like me that has it all figured out. So we appreciate the good that you do. And can I come in, pay a visit, see your establishment?
It would be my pleasure, honestly, to welcome you to our center. It's right in Zahra, not too far from here.
Amazing.
We'll love to have you one day.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, we'll put a bunch of your links, your website, social media links for people to reach out to you and perhaps, come in for a visit. Maybe they want to book a training session for their employees. We'll put all that in the YouTube description box. And I certainly do look forward to coming and visiting you there.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Wallah, thank you, Hisham. All the best.
Thank you.